But tonight we have a very special presentation just for him. Ladies and gentlemen, please help me welcome 116 graduate and current U.S. Army infantry.
Her daughter, and so is Avery Hinton. You have a present under the tree.
I'll be back with the Bud Lights for you.
All right. Which table?
Brian pretended to be a waiter, bringing ordered drinks to the table.
Here you go, Mama.
Oh my God!
To throw Mackenzie Freeman off her game, laser focused until mid-play. She spots a face she hasn't seen in over half a year, jumping into her father's arms, the first of many hugs.
It's been over 7 months, so it's been a long time coming.
Following a tour of duty in Afghanistan, Master Sergeant Jeremy Freeman is
So bring more of the tickets to the birthday show. Yes!
This is the moment they've both been dreaming of, but it wasn't complete without one more stop.
Hey kids, I want to wish you an early happy birthday from Monrovia. I wish I could be there with you to celebrate, but I can't.
Let's head to center court. We got some birthday gifts that Rob wants to pass off. Are you ready?
Volumes.
Baby.
Oh, come on!
Come on, surprise. Come on in. Mom. Mom. Mom.
Hi, baby. Paris is a chief petty officer for the U.S. Navy, and she was deployed for 10 months. Her son's in tears to see her return home.
That's not one of your siblings either.
I tell you.
Girl or a boy? Boy. Girl?
You can always ask for a hint. Remember, you can ask for a hint.
How cool is that? It was like the 25th. Yeah. I said, but I don't think I'm going to talk to you this weekend. You got so much going on.
Air Force Master Sergeant John Lang shocked his 20-year-old daughter, a hockey nut whose first...
Grab him, Nikki.
Fun. Real fun this year. Well, we have a special guest today. It's Veterans Day.
Daddy! He's crying!
Oh my gosh! Oh my gosh! It's tweener! Oh my god! Oh my god! Oh my god!
A little help in the goals in the crowd. 3, 2, 1. Ladies and gentlemen, can I have you guys turn around real quick? Your dad is home from the Air Force. He's been serving overseas. He is home, Master Sergeant Aaron McKean. He has been serving 20 years in the United States Air Force. He has returned the Middle East 5 times. Die-hard Lightning fans in a home reunion.
Jaden Cunningham. Eric Benson.
Welcome to the Patriot View. I am the CIA Cowboy, along with my host, the cool and awesome Patriotic Veteran, and we have got one heck of a stream up for you guys today. We've got a great interview coming up with my buddy UnbrokenVet in the second half of the show. We got some good topics to talk about. Patriotic, why don't you tell us about your week? What'd you do this week, man?
Cried most of it because the Blackhawks seem like they're dismantling their entire team. I can tell you like 2 dudes left on the hockey team. It's terrible.
Right.
I'm so mad at them. That's literally all I've been doing every day that they release somebody new. Patrick Kane's gone, one of the best American hockey players to ever be on the ice.
Well, that's no good.
Just chopped a lot of wood this week. You took advantage of that good weather, you know. Not today, obviously. It snowed 4 inches, but prior to today. Took advantage of the good weather and got a whole bunch of wood ready for the impending storm. What
Very
about you?
cool. Well, this week I spent a good bit of time working. We've been pretty busy at work. Normally this is my slow month of the year, but this year we seem to be pretty busy, which bodes well for the summertime. And been busy with actually all three of my jobs this month. But this week I spent a lot of time also kicking up my iRacing rating, trying to get to that B class license so I can start racing some ARCA cars. Uh, Definitely getting hooked into that pretty good, and Unbroken and you and
I
whiskey and
told you, man. That's a
it's
dangerous
dude,
game.
that's addictive right there. Oh,
That's why
and
it's so expensive.
getting ready for oops, my hands make my green screen go away. Getting ready for my vacation this summer. Going to Oshkosh, Wisconsin for AirVenture 2023. My brother-in-law sent me this snazzy red, white, and black hat, which
Heck
matches all
yeah.
my race cars. So I've had a pretty good week altogether, man. It's been a great week. So guys,
That's
I
good.
know we got some follows during the lead-in. I did not catch the names on those, but thank you so much for following. We're so glad that you're here at the Patriot View. Um, really, really got a good show put together for you. What do you got on the table?
Why are we doing this on a Friday? What happened to Sundays?
So we looked at Sundays. Sundays was a great day when we started until both of us realizes that neither of us considered the NASCAR schedule. And we do love us some NASCAR. So guys, in place of streaming on Sundays, we're going to be streaming on Friday nights from 6 to 8 p.m. Central every week. We're going to bring you some real issues, real talk. No topics surrounding our veterans is taboo. No questions will go unanswered. And we're here to give you information if you're a vet that will help you. And if you're not a veteran, we're here to give you information that will help you help veterans. And so that's what we exist for. That's why we do what we do. We're going to be doing that on Friday nights from 6 to 8. And on Sundays, starting 30 minutes before the race start, we will go live with a watch party in our Discord, exclamation point race in chat. We'll bring up the link to our Discord. You're welcome to join the Discord, and we will have a live watch party of each race each Sunday. Just hang out together as a community, and most likely we will turn some laps in iRacing afterwards.
Definitely. Got a special guest this Sunday too. My father-in-law is going to join us for a race. So he says. Now he's not very good at keeping appointments, so we'll see how that turns out. But hopefully he'll get the. I explained to him how we stream it over Discord. A bunch of us just sitting there and bullshit and watch the race or whatever. And he said that sounds pretty cool. He's like 62, I think. So
Oh, we can teach him
it's
to
a,
use Discord. That's no big
yeah,
deal.
it's a whole new world for him.
Actually, I'm surprised at the number of Vietnam era veterans that I know who use Discord for various things. COVID actually drove a lot of them to Discord because the Zoom servers were getting so full that their meetings would crash and times were limited. And they discovered that with Discord, they could do their video chats for their groups and their reunions and stuff like that. And a lot of them are actually very active on Discord. It
Yep.
really surprised me to find that out. Turn the volume up on Patriotic Veteran a little bit, please. Okay, we can do that. We'll try
If
and
we had
get that.
moderators in our channel with us, that wouldn't have to be on there.
So, before we go any further, big thanks to our chat mods headed up by SolidBam116586. Then we got Burning Ashes 36 and Speedy 69691. These are the best moderators on Twitch, or the best ones that we could afford with the salary that we're offering.
Yep.
We really do appreciate our mod team. Just some great people there. Everybody works really hard to make this come together. And Meat Shield is our producer. He's dealing with some technical issues with his computer this week, so all the technical errors you saw last week and the technical errors you will see tonight are on me.
They're on Meat?
On me. Meat Shield
Oh.
is not guilty, but we
Look what
really
I got today.
appreciate him. Ooh, upgrades.
Brand new motherboard.
Nice. When you get a fatherboard?
Well, I'm gonna have two motherboards because it's 2023 and we can do that.
Oh, yeah. Hey, good point. Two motherboards. Yeah, makes sense. So, let's get into some serious discussion. I was
Bring
looking
it.
around for topics to cover this week, and one thing that caught my eye happened last year on August 8th. The PACT Act was signed into effect by President Biden, and it's a really interesting bill. It's good for our vets. So I'm looking over to the left because I'm looking at my other monitor here. Let me move this over where I can read it on this monitor, and then I will be looking closer to where you folks are at. Um, the PACT Act is perhaps the largest healthcare benefit expansion in VA history, and the name definitely lives up to that because the full name of it is the Sergeant First Class SFC Keith Robinson Honoring Our Promise to Address Comprehensive Toxics Act. So the name is definitely the largest, but what it does is it expands and extends eligibility for VA health care for veterans with toxic exposures and veterans from the Vietnam, Gulf War, and post 9/11 eras. And this expansion added 20 plus presumptive conditions related to burn pits, Agent Orange, and other toxins. And then it also added more presumptive exposure locations for Agent Orange and radiation. Now, what they mean with the word presumptive is that if you served during this time or at these locations and you have certain symptoms, it's automatically presumed that those symptoms are caused by your service in the military, which makes it easier to get the health care and things that you need for that. So they actually are expanding the not so much the coverage as it is the net that makes up the coverage. They're not changing what treatments they offer at the VA, but they're changing the qualifications required to get those treatments under the VA's care and making it easier for a veteran to access them, which I think is a good thing.
Treatment and compensation, right?
Compensation as well. That's right. You and I had a conversation earlier about compensation for disability and the fact that a large number of veterans get turned down when they file for disability compensation the first time, and more than half of the people that get turned down for it are turned down simply because paperwork wasn't filled out properly. Now, with the expansion of this PACT Act, that's actually going to help reduce some of that because it makes it not so hard to prove you're eligible for something. You and I also talked, you mentioned that the burden of proof had been lifted for a lot of this
Yep.
stuff. Explain that a little bit.
Well, it used to be like when I first sought VA healthcare coverage, not compensation necessarily. They wanted all of your records. So like you had to show what unit you're in, where you're deployed to, how long you were there. Like they even on one incident asked me for like a sworn statement for an engagement. I'm like, well, I don't have that stuff. I have no idea what squad leaders do with that stuff whenever we're done with it. But I sure as hell don't see it.
Right.
But that basically is what that is. Is they're just saying, oh, okay, like the VA has access to most of your military documents. Obviously, not all, like such as sworn statements from events and whatever. But they just removed the burden of proof for the veteran, and it makes it easier because instead of me having to go through a box that was in the attic for 20 years and hopefully that my orders for my deployment to Baghdad or whatever is in there, now they just it's automatically connected to your file. So oh yes, we can see that he was deployed to Baghdad, and like you said about um widening the net, that's all it is. Like that's good enough. If you're on this base in Baghdad, we don't need to know if you actually burned shit with diesel fuel or not. We just assume that
You were there.
that you were exposed to stuff. So we will treat you like you were to prove or disprove, whether you have any of those conditions or not. Obviously, they're not just going to start throwing meds at you, which the VA also has a bad rap for. But that just removes the burden from the veteran to have to prove that you were somewhere doing a certain activity
Right.
at the time.
Well, the things that it covers, or the things rather that it's not so much things that weren't covered before, but rather these things that are now considered presumptive or presumed to be caused by your service in a certain area at a certain time. They include brain cancer, gastrointestinal cancer of any type, glioblastoma, head cancer of any type, kidney cancer, lymphatic cancer of any type, lymphoma of any type, neck cancer of any type, reproductive cancer of any type, respiratory cancer of any type. That's a wide net when it comes to
Yeah.
cancer. I mean, that's pretty much everything when it comes to cancer that they're covering.
Well, another big problem that they're having, especially with like post 9/11 vets, is hearing problems. And it's not that we're going deaf. In 2018, they conducted a study. I think it's 2018. They conducted a study to where, and I don't know the official name of the study. I don't have it pulled up on my other screen or nothing, but it's a cool thing that I just figured out because I think I had this problem. And so the hearing test that you normally do, where you go in the room and you hold the thing and you press the button, beep,
Yep.
yep, I heard the noise, beep, yep, I heard the noise. So the problem is they have figured out they think it's connected to exposure to petroleum products. So JP5, JP8, that's what JP8's what I think it's jet
fuel, Jet A.
propellant. That's what it is.
Right.
Right. I think. But and then JP5 is like a lower, like a diesel, like a kerosene versus an actual jet fuel, right? So the number correlates to how pure the product is the way I understand it. And I'm not a refueler, so I don't know that to be fact. But
Just know
anyways,
it burns if you strike a match.
yeah, they did this study to see if wires are being crossed in your brain from exposure to this stuff. So you're refueling your Humvees or your tanks or your whatever, and it's soaking into your clothes, or you spill it on your pants, but you're on a 3-day mission and you don't get to change pants because you decide you want to bring your pillow instead of your pants. That's this guy. Always bring my pillow. But what they think it does is it soaks in through your pores, gets in your bloodstream, and then crosses some wires in your head. So you're not actually not hearing the noises. You can hear the volume of your hearing is fine, but the signal you're receiving from your ears to your brain is being distorted. So you might say something to me and I can hear you, but I'm still going to say, huh, because you sounded discombobulated, or I couldn't quite piece the letters to your words together or something like that. So that's another thing about opening up nets, casting wider nets. They're doing that with hearing too. And they're not just doing the standardized hearing test. They brought me in for like a very in-depth, it was probably an hour and a half. And it's not just the beeps anymore at this specialist they did. And this is a civilian specialist that I was referred to by the VA. So it was all paid for. And they did a very in-depth test where they have you like repeat phrases or pick out the third word of this phrase, testing for that. So that's another good
Right.
thing that we got going for us.
Yeah, I mean widening the parameters more so than
Right.
the
That's a
coverage.
good
It's
that's a
just
good word for it. Yeah.
open the gate a little bit wider so that more people who need the help can get to the help. And that's a good thing. Other things that this PACT Act is also going to cover are illnesses that maybe aren't considered as deadly as cancer, but can be debilitating. Things like asthma, chronic bronchitis, COPD, chronic rhinitis, sinusitis, emphysema, pleuritis, pulmonary fibrosis, sarcoidosis. These are all upper respiratory and sinus issues that they're also including in these presumptions. So if you guys, if you've served and you're wondering if, hey, am I possibly eligible to get help for this, here's all you've got to know in order to check with the VA and get things started if you have any of these symptoms. If you served on or after September 11th, 2001 at any of these locations, Afghanistan, Djibouti, I like saying that. Afghanistan, Djibouti, Egypt, Jordan, Lebanon, Syria, Uzbekistan, Yemen, or the airspace above any of these locations. Or if you served on or after August 2nd, 1990 in any of these locations: Bahrain, Iraq, Kuwait, Oman, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, Somalia, the UAE or United Arab Emirates, or the airspace above any of those locations, you are actually eligible to be covered for any of these symptoms that are listed above. And here's what they're saying. If you served in any of these locations or time periods, we've determined that you had exposure to burn pits or other toxins, and we call this having a presumption of exposure. So it is presumed that the VA needs to take care of any of these symptoms.
So they're gonna go look for these symptoms. What is what you're saying? They're not just gonna write you a check. Here's $1,000. Sorry about you. You're saying that that's opening like the screenings or whatever up. That now when you go into your VA appointment, you tell them, hey, I think I was in this spot at this time. I think I might have some exposure issues. Then they can start looking for these symptoms that instead of just maybe thinking you have a cold or something else, or Like sinusitis, I got diagnosed with that, and that's just I got sinus problems. It's just general sinus problems. Sometimes I got runny noses for no reason or sneezing and infections.
All right, so I just sent the link to this to one of our moderators. Solid, if you could get that posted in chat. This is the article from the VA.gov website that explains all of this. So if you're a veteran and you've served in any of these locations, or maybe you didn't get the whole list, click that link right there. The list is about halfway down the document there, and it'll explain to you exactly what the qualifications are in order to get help if you're suffering from any of these symptoms. And these aren't the only ones. There's other related presumptive conditions that are listed in the PACT Act, and so there's a lot more to it than just what we've talked about. This also covered, as we mentioned, Agent Orange and VA, VA eligibility for Agent Orange coverage. There's two new Agent Orange conditions that have been added: high blood pressure or hypertension, and monoclonal gammopathy of undetermined significance, MGUS. I don't know if I said that right or not. You can read the article and try it out yourself. That's a big freaking word, and I'm just a poor country boy from Tennessee that struggles with spelling four-letter words most days.
Yeah, you better leave that to somebody else.
And if you do have any of this stuff going on, you can file a claim. Um, you can actually do it. Actually, I'm going to send one more link to you, Solid. If you could get that. You can file a claim at that link right there. She's going to drop that one in next. Thank you so much, Solid. You rock. Awesome admin.
But all right, easy with it. She knows she's awesome.
Hey,
You gotta pamper her.
I gotta be nice. Gotta be nice. She's helping my wife train our dog, and I don't want him to bite me while I'm sleeping, so I'm gonna be nice.
That's probably what they're training him for.
Yeah, I bet that's how he learned to poop in the floor. I bet you.
Makes sense.
Solid, did you teach my dog to poop in the floor?
Well, she says you're number one.
Okay, so can veteran survivors get compensation payments under the PACT Act? Actually, yes, you can.
Yep.
You can apply for those benefits for dependents on veterans who were exposed to these toxins. So there's a lot covered in the PACT Act, and I think it's good when we take time to recognize something that government does right. There's not a whole lot of those often. So when there is one, it's good to recognize it. And one thing that you and I have talked about continuously is the quality of care that you've been getting from the VA. How's that going for you?
It's great, man. I mean, it's better than it's ever been. Whenever I started getting VA care in 2005, the closest clinic to me was just at a clinic, and I'm talking like small, nasty ass tile floors that ain't been waxed or polished. Dust in the corner. You wait 3 hours for your appointment. Literally, all the things that people think the VA is, that's what it was.
Right.
And man, about 10 years ago, I went back to that clinic, and they had knocked it down and put a brand new shiny hospital there, and it's like everything you need from eyeglasses to foot care to they'll give you a pair of work boots. I'm flat footed. They're like, oh, here, you get one pair of boots every year. I'm like, that's better than my damn employer does. But uh, new facilities everywhere. I used to have one facility that was about an hour and a half away, one that was about 2 hours and 15 minutes away, and now I've got one 35 minutes away, one 45 minutes away, one 60 minutes away. Like they're building everywhere. They're hiring tons of medical professionals of all ranks or whatever you call them, I guess, all certifications. Uh, the claims process is easier than it's ever been. I'm talking about for compensation, money, writing checks. They write more checks than they've ever wrote. I think I looked this up earlier. I think it was they're up to like $9 billion a year in compensation payments.
Yep.
For like 5.1 million veterans or something. It's a lot, whatever it comes out to.
And
But
a large reason that we are writing more checks too is we have more veterans surviving on the field to come home from combat situations due to better
that's a very good
equipment,
point.
better training. I mean, World War II, we lost so many people in World War II. Vietnam, 58,000 people killed in Vietnam. Where are we at in Afghanistan? Do you know?
Iraq and Afghanistan are about
I
5,000. Now
think it
that's
was,
not
yeah,
just
I think it was just under
battlefield.
5,000.
Yeah.
So we've definitely um, improved, as they would say in the video game world, we've improved our KD. We're doing much better in that, and that's good. Now
Well,
the
and humans are just living longer too, right? I mean, World
yeah,
War II, the average lifespan was what, 62? Now it's 78 for a man.
right.
Not a guy like me, of course. I wreck bikes and do all the other dumb shit, but
Yeah,
for,
I'll be lucky if I see 70.
yeah, I seen your hand. I
70 is
don't know
looking
why you
pretty good.
stick your hand in spider with S.
You haven't seen my hand lately. I'm gonna send you another video of that. I
Oh,
heard
gross.
I heard you like that.
Yeah, I think everybody in your Discord is a huge fan of your constant updates.
Oh man. So one of the things that has changed for the VA is that in 2021, Dennis McDonough was sworn in as the VA Affairs Secretary, and he promised to make the department more inclusive, welcoming, and user-friendly. 2 years later, he says the VA is much closer to those goals, but they're not there just yet. He told Military Times in an interview that one priority is keeping the veteran at the center of all we're doing. Are we building our programming and our support, our care and benefits into the veteran's life, or are we making the veteran fit into us? And I would say on that things are changing, but there's still a long way to go. So the thing I like about this guy, first of all, well, I'm not even going to get into the politics of it. He
Well,
was
you're gonna
appointed
have
to,
to do some legwork. So, that can't, that's not their goal. Their goal is not to make it to where you can sit at home and the doctor comes to your house and examines you in your living room. Like,
right.
you're gonna have to put it. You have to go to a doctor appointment. Just like if you were not a veteran, you would have to go to a doctor appointment.
Yep.
So,
Not everything can be done with telehealth,
right.
fortunately. But this fellow, they elected him or appointed him rather as the VA secretary. I met him last year in Memphis. I had a good conversation with him. He spoke for about 45 minutes, took a question and answer session afterwards, and I was actually able to sit down and talk to him for about 30 minutes after the meeting. Um, Very interesting man. Really loves our veterans and wants to make a difference for them. And one of the
Is
biggest
he a
things,
veteran?
he is not, but his father and his brother both are. And
Okay.
that's why he loves our vets. That he did not serve, and I cannot remember why he didn't serve. I think he was too young for Vietnam. And then right after Vietnam, he was college age, so he went to college. But one of the biggest things that he thinks the VA face is, as an organization, the biggest thing it faces is gaining the trust of veterans. He said,
Yep.
we have a lot of tools that make sure that we can track and get feedback from veterans, but the most important thing that we need from them is trust. And he said the best way we can get that is to be transparent with them. And so he's been working to simplify and streamline the paperwork process for all different parts of the VA. He's been working to make sure that it's staffed properly, and he's been working to make sure that veterans have access to information on how they need to go about filling out their paperwork for, say, disability compensation. In the past, I think one of the things that benefits the current generation of veterans is computers. In the past, it was all paperwork, it was done by mail, and it might take 6 weeks for a round of letters to make their way back and forth just to find out that you filled something out incorrectly and got turned down. Now
Oh
you
yeah.
have to start the process completely over again. Whereas with computers, you have the opportunity to correct things in real time. And also, as we talked about earlier, veteran service officers. Now,
I was getting ready to say that. I think that is the best implementation that they have. Period. Is the veteran service officers. Those guys.
how
They do all the legwork. I mean, I couldn't even imagine doing that for a job.
How
That
does
that's
how does your interaction with a veteran service officer start? How does that typically go for a veteran?
word of mouth is how it's nothing the VA advertises, which I don't really understand why. I kind of get the gist that the VA might not like working with these guys because they're kind of like lawyers, right? They're kind of like our lawyers. They
Yeah,
speak on our behalf and they put in all the work on our behalf, and they don't, pardon the language, whatever. They don't take no bullshit. That.
they
Uh,
fight for you.
yeah, and so I kind of get the idea that the VA doesn't promote them because maybe they're a pain in the ass for them, but it's a huge asset for us. I mean, so back to the beginning, you asked how I got turned onto it. is word of mouth. A guy at work was like, "Hey, have you done any disability stuff yet?" Because we talked about it. I'm like, "Yeah, man, I tried and I did the thing, and then that didn't get the email sent in time, and you only have time. You have time frames for everything, and then I missed my deadline, so I had to resubmit and blah blah blah." And he literally gave me this dude's phone number on a piece of paper. Just here you go, call this dude, have a 10-minute conversation with him.
Kind of
He
the
will
same
hook
way
you up.
we did for my buddy in Alabama.
It's exactly what happened. And so I called that dude. He's like, "Yep, I'm gonna send you an email. Send me an email to release information and a whatever he can do stuff on your behalf, whatever that's called. Like it's like a power of attorney, but not really.
Right.
Uh,
Gives him
but
the ability to fill out paperwork, basically.
right, like maybe signature authority. I'm not sure what it's called, but yeah, and it's just that's it. And then so like, man, they were talking like 2 or 3 years between VA claims at the time, but for compensation claims, and man, my stuff was done in like 8 weeks, and they, like I said, I think I told this last episode, and they sent me a back pay check too. They're like, "Hey, sorry it took so long. Here, we missed that year. Here's a check." I'm like, "Oh crap!" Like that was really easy and really fast. And then, yeah, obviously I had to go to that 8 weeks was full of appointments. I was going to 2 to 3 appointments a week. And they schedule it, you know, and they fit it in your schedule. You schedule your own appointments. You tell them how far away you want to drive because they have third party contractors uh, that do your exams and stuff. That way, you're not fitting into the VA's schedule. Your medical exams are fitting into your schedule. And yeah, since that guy actually got promoted to like regional overseer for VSOs in the area, and then I got hooked up with the guy who took his spot and had a buddy who was considering doing the compensation thing. And I said, man, just call him. Like, I'm not saying you have to do it or that whatever, but there's a lot of benefits out there that you've earned that, frankly, a lot of guys are just afraid to ask for. But and I gave him his number. He called him up. He called me like 2 weeks later. He's like, "Man, that guy was great. Thank you so much. Like he took care of everything. I've got appointments lined up. All I gotta do is drive. That's it. All the paperwork's done. All the scanning and faxing of documents is all done on my behalf. It's a huge asset."
Right, right. So one of the things also that Secretary McDonald's been focusing on is making sure that the staff at the VA is top shelf. Their doctors, he said, we're checking into our doctors, making sure that they're practicing at the top of their license, taking care of vets, and not just doing paperwork. He said, so we're working on that because that getting it to where they have additional staff to help manage paperwork and manage intakes and stuff like that frees up the actual medical staff at a facility to be able to do the medical things they need to do. It's what keeps you from having to sit for 6 or 8 hours in a hallway at 8 o'clock at night when you had a 2 o'clock in the afternoon appointment. And so, I mean, the VA has changed drastically in recent years. It really has. And I'm excited to see the things that I'm hearing from veterans that I know about the care that they're getting. Vietnam guys getting help with Agent Orange exposure, help with skin cancer, guys that have had surgeries and things like that, and they're getting the care that they need. They're getting not just the care that they need, but I mean, these guys, especially here in Memphis, are telling me that the doctors that they're seeing, they're at the top of their game. And that is a good thing for our vets. You guys, you should be getting the top shelf service.
Heck yeah, I have not quite had that experience. I've had some very good doctors who, like you said, I feel like they're at the top of their game, and then I've uh I've had some rough interactions with a few doctors as well who, like my last psychologist or psychiatrist, I don't know which is which, to be honest. One of them can write scripts and one of them can't. But like we were doing this webcam telehealth stuff, right? Hey, how you feeling? Are you awake? Are you like basically are you depressed? Are you gonna kill yourself? That's all they want to know. And like man, the whole time we're having this interview, she's just typing. She's like, "Oh, hold on, stop talking for a sec," so she can type, and she's just basically teletyping our interview.
Right.
And it was a terrible experience. And I told her, I said, whenever you ask me a question, can you look into the camera or like watch the screen and like see what I'm gonna say? Like watch, have a conversation with me, not just type it, because otherwise we could just do this via email.
Right.
But that was a pretty I told her I'm done. Like, I'm not just gonna sit here and talk to my computer screen so you can type a bunch of shit. You know, it's not that wasn't a very good experience. But most of the physical doctors seem like they're they're pretty on top of their game, as you said.
So Secretary McDonough was appointed by a Democratic Party president. He's backed by a Democratic candidate. And one of the questions Military Times asked him about was how politicization or even possible
How what?
politicization. Yeah, it's a big word. Shut up.
Easy for you to say.
And they even brought up the possibility of weaponization of some veterans issues because we now have a Republican Congress. We're headed towards another presidential election cycle, and they asked him, are you worried about the political differences becoming an issue with solving the problems for veterans? And this was his response, and I thought it was a great response. He said, the question for us is always going to be, what is the basis on which we operate with Capitol Hill? And the basis on which we operate will be full transparency. So we operate under a no surprises posture, and we'll obviously explain the decisions we make, whether that's on the emergency effort to ensure that the 300,000 women veterans of childbearing age have confidence that they can get the reproductive care they need from a provider they trust at the VA, or
It's a
whether
valid point.
it's execution of the new law as relating to toxic exposure. He's talking about the PACT Act there. And he said, I think Congress is going to have questions. And this is where I really like his response. He said, and they're right to ask them. We will answer them. But for us, this is all about execution on behalf of the veterans. And as long as we continue to operate in that way, I have every confidence that we'll have the resources we need to carry out this important mission. So he believes that he can get bipartisan support for the things that they're trying to do. And so far, they have done pretty well with that. I've been paying attention to some of the things that have been going on recently on Capitol Hill, and let me tell you, I'm worried when I see some of the appointees that we have for jobs. The guy that they want to appoint as director for the FAA, who currently runs LAX Airport, could not answer a single question about air regulations. He couldn't talk about airspace. He couldn't talk about the difference between a private and a commercial license for a drone pilot. He didn't know what the difference was between a commercial pilot, a private pilot, and a pilot operating on a medical card or operating on a sport pilot's license. He literally had no FAA knowledge at all. This is the guy they want to put in charge of the Federal Aviation Administration.
Makes sense.
But the guy that they put in charge of the VA, I gotta say, he's trying to do what's right by our veterans and make sure that they get the care that they need. And I think that's something that should be recognized and appreciated.
And what I forgot, maybe you told me or maybe you didn't, I don't know. What is he appointed to?
He is the Secretary of Veteran Affairs. So he
So
is
like
the
Washington D.C. the guy.
Yep, he's the
Okay.
boss man over the VA, handpicked and appointed by President Biden for this job. Um, and as I said, I don't agree with a lot of politics on that side of the aisle. But this choice, I think, was a good choice for our VA. I think it's been good, and I think that they have. He's managed to unite people on both sides of the political aisle to get things done for our veterans that should have been done 20 years ago, and
Yep.
that's pretty cool. You know?
Seems like I mean, from what you say, I don't know the guy, but you got to sit down and have a conversation with him, which is pretty awesome.
Yeah, that was pretty
Um,
cool.
seems like he's got his head in the right place, you know.
Well, they asked him, how do you make your policy? How do you make change, and the change that you implement are two sides of the same coin? And he said, well, look, he said, we're doing this in a way that's informed by consulting with veterans. We're learning in a way that gets us the right outcome, and we're doing it as part of a larger effort to make sure that everybody feels welcome at the VAs across the country. He said, we're trying to make soldiers and sailors and airmen. He said, we want them to be able to come in and feel comfortable getting the care that they need and make it simpler for them to get that care.
Sounds like a good plan to me.
I think so. I think so. Um, we one of the things that they fought has been electronic health records. the rollout for electronic health records went through several delays, and Military Times asked, "Are we at a point now where there's too many delays and too many problems with it?" And he said, "Look," he said, "we're a data-driven operation here. If we get to that point, it's going to be because of what we learned from the data rather than what I learned from my emotions." In other words, we've got to collect the data, and then we've got to find a way to get the data into the hands that can actually do something with it and use
Right.
the data to affect change. And he said there's many times in the office I get emotional about this. I get really pissed off, to be mildly crude, because this is a massive investment of taxpayer resources, and the program and the technology is not living up to the billing. He said our vets deserve better. But this is not a decision that I'm going to arrive at through emotion, which sometimes get the best of me, but rather through data. And if it's not working for vets, we're not going to do it. But we're also not just going to throw it away because we get tired of trying to figure it out. So I like a guy with that kind of attitude. He says, "Hey, look, we know there's problems with it, but we're going to figure out how to fix the problems or exhaust all options before we throw it away and just
Right.
discard the millions of dollars that we've spent to put it in place."
Well, it's definitely a money vacuum. I mean, the Department of Veterans Affairs always has been, and that's just something we're going to have to accept. Just like a commander going into battle, you have to accept a certain number of casualties, and the casualty in this conversation is taxpayer dollars. But where would you rather spend it?
Right. Well, this was a good point too brought up in the interview. The person doing the interview said, "Hey, the average shelf life for VA secretary is right around 2 years, and we're just through the midterms. Are you starting to think about leaving the administration?" I love his response. He said, "The direct answer to your question is no, I'm not thinking about leaving. The more nuanced answer to the question is talk to the president and then ask Congress. I tried to invest in relationships up there no matter what party because we're all in this thing together. Nobody asked the vets if they were Republicans or Democrats, and if I lose their confidence, then that will be a problem." That is a really good answer to that question, because he said, he understands that he serves at the pleasure of Congress and the president,
Yeah,
and he's
that's
trying
a
to
that's a
build
fair point. I mean,
relationships.
no one ever asked me what my political party was.
Yeah,
That's
they just asked you if you wanted to wear green or blue. you know,
who
you know,
wears blue.
Navy,
Oh, gross.
Coast Guard. Where's Devin? I had a good
I
puddle.
seen him on his boat. He was
That
wearing
was,
blue jeans and a
that was
button up.
That was a good puddle jumper, puddle pirate joke right there, and I missed it. He wasn't here. So it's crazy to think that veterans issues would become a political football, no matter your party affiliation. But we have seen that happen time and time again in my lifetime. Now, I didn't start paying attention to politics until I was in my late 20s, when suddenly I started to realize, hey, there's something bigger than me and the town that I live in. There's a whole big country out here that, I need to be paying attention to what's going on. And I've watched veterans issues become an arguing point for politicians or a campaign platform for politicians.
Yeah,
We should have never gotten to the point in this country where a veteran's health or a veteran's care would ever be able to be used as a campaigning platform. It should have been so top notch that there would be no room to improve it, and therefore you couldn't promise to improve it as a political candidate.
yeah, I
And
agree.
for that, I apologize to all of our veterans. I'm sorry. It shouldn't be that way. But I like this guy's answer, the fact that he's trying to work both sides of the aisle in order to get the vets the help
Well,
they
there's
need.
always room for improvement, right? I mean, technology's not stopping,
Right.
infrastructure's not stopping. We're always going to have better equipment, better technologies, better everything. We have to match that with our care. We have to implement all the growth that we have into action.
And veteran care has changed over the years. When I was a kid, most of the guys that you talked to who were going to the VA were Vietnam era or Cold War era veterans. A few of the guys who came back from the first Desert Storm dealt with some stuff, and they would go to the VA. But it was like for cancers or maybe wounds or something, stuff that ongoing physical issues from a shoulder wound or a leg wound. But now, according to Pew Research, the post 9/11 veterans differ from those who served in previous eras because literally 20% of veterans today served in active duty after the terrorist attacks of September 11th.
Yep.
and therefore the 9/11 veterans are more likely to have been deployed and to have served in a combat scenario, which makes them pretty different from the guys who went through, say, the Cold War of the late 70s and through the 80s.
Well,
We didn't really
and to
have a
add
lot
on
of
to that,
conflict.
the definition of combat has drastically changed.
Yes.
I mean, World War II, the guy running the radio probably wouldn't come home and say, "Yeah, I saw a bunch of combat," whenever he was in the HQ building the whole time following around the general. And nowadays, those guys are getting, and Unbroken Vet's probably got one of these, so I'm not trying to talk shit about nobody, but now those guys are getting what's called a combat action badge, and that's like we can talk to him if he's got one and the requirements. But I think I was overseas, I was in Baghdad actually whenever they implemented this new metal, because I remember all the like mechanics and all the cooks that don't even cook, all the engineers, all those guys are like all of a sudden getting, we're handing out 9 medals a day, combat action badges, because they implemented this thing, and it's to give somebody recognition for basically, I think at the time it was like being within 1,000 yards of enemy action, right? So if a mortar round drops in on base, boom, you just handed out 1,000 combat action badges, and that's the way I feel about it. As the infantryman, he will understand what I'm talking about when we get him in here. I'll ask him, but yeah, we've redefined the definition of combat. Even the guys sitting in Kuwait who have a KFC and a Burger King and a Dairy Queen on their base, even those guys are eligible for some of that stuff. And technically, Kuwait, I don't know if it is now, but when I was overseas, Kuwait was considered a combat zone, and you got combat pay.
Right.
So, you know, we we changed the definition so that the numbers obviously are going to reflect that change. And the other part of this that I want to make a point is we are a softer society, and I'm talking softer as in like not hardened, not as sensitive as say our World War II and Vietnam veterans probably were.
Right.
I never heard of a World War II veteran, and me and you are both old enough. They're
Yep.
dying off fast now, but you and I are both old
We
enough
grew
to
up
have.
around them.
Right, those were the guys, like the greatest generation. Like I could probably tell my kids what the greatest generation is, and they would not know what I was talking about.
Right.
But those guys weren't sitting on webcams boo-hooing about PTSD and my damn shoulder hurts. It's so between definition changes of combat and also cultural society changes
Right.
of hardness versus softness or sensitivity, whatever. I don't. There's a word out there, I'm sure, for what I'm looking for. I just can't find it right now. But
Right.
both
Well,
of
and we're
those
not
reflect.
downplaying injuries received in combat by any means. So please don't anybody take it that way.
No,
But
absolutely
I
not.
totally get the point that you're making. There was a time, when a man skinned his knee, he wiped his knee off and he went back to work. Now we got men who skin their knees and they go home for a week.
Yeah.
It's just a different society that we live in. Pew Research, they did some research on this. They said that roughly 47% of post 9/11 veterans say that they have dealt with emotionally traumatic or distressing experience related to the military service, and that's compared to about 25% of pre 9/11 veterans.
Yep.
And so that reflects directly on what you're saying there. That the
Yeah.
generations have changed. And about a third of 35% is the number given of post 9/11 veterans say that they sought professional help to deal with those experiences, and a similar number say that regardless of whether they sought the help, they believe they've suffered from post-traumatic stress.
Am I still in your chat? Because I don't see me.
I see you.
Okay. Well, hopefully it's good then.
Yeah,
Somebody tell me if I'm not.
You're there. You're there. So these numbers are from Pew Research. Pew Research is a very reputable survey company. They study things and give statistics. Um, one thing that they did, and we're about 7 minutes from break or so. So I wanted to hit this and let you talk on this. Most veterans say that they have felt proud of their service since leaving the military. Roughly two-thirds, at 68%, say that in the first few years after leaving the military, they frequently felt proud of their military service. Um, Now, pre 9/11 vets are more likely to say they frequently felt proud of their service than are the post 9/11 vets. And those numbers are 70% for pre 9/11 and 58% for post 9/11. How do you feel about your military service? How do you feel about serving?
Oh shit, man! You would ask me this now. I should ask me whenever he was in the room too. Um, it changes, to be honest. If you would have asked me this 2 years ago, I would say, well, I'm pretty proud. If you would have asked me 10 years ago, I would have said, I'm damn proud. You asked me today, and I'm like, and this is not turning this into a political show, but everybody, you got to keep in mind, most of the people that I served with went to Iraq, went to Afghanistan. And whenever you got presidents start talking about pulling out of places and just leaving a bunch of equipment in there and stuff, it leaves a pretty bad taste in your mouth. So no one ever wants to serve in vain, right? And I'm not talking about just serve your country. No one wants to do anything in vain. You don't want to go to work and not get paid, right?
Right.
Well, my 20 $100 paycheck every month wasn't the payment that I signed up for. Like you don't join the military, you don't join the infantry for the money.
You're not getting rich out there.
Right. And so whenever they take away the pride, they never really gave you the money, and they took away your pride by abandoning your war. It changes the way you feel about. So pride is not the word that I would any longer use to describe my feelings about my service, and that's not. I mean, it's not really anybody's fault. I understand the war had to end at some point in time, but I think the way the way that we left um, put a pretty bad taste in a lot of people's mouth, including my own.
I can definitely say that most of the guys that I know that have served in Afghanistan and Iraq have espoused those very same emotions
Yeah.
regarding that. That
Well, I
a
mean,
lot of them feel like
people
that
leave
was
body
just
parts there.
yeah,
There's guys that they left America with a leg and came home without one, and or I lost a tooth over there. That's a different topic, but that's not even a percent as much as a lot of people gave. Mental injuries, TBIs, PTSDs is a real thing that a lot of people deal with.
right.
And for all that, just to give a country back to the people we went there to take it from, whenever you know we were handcuffed most of the time we're there. You can't just go out and shoot everybody. Like obviously, this is a big hearts and mind war. We were there to first of all kick everybody's ass and get them out that we didn't want there, and then to rebuild the country from the inside out, to rebuild the police forces, to rebuild the army. They even have reserve army units, like weekend warrior type units where they call them as needed.
Yeah.
Um, and just to leave all of that behind and let it go back to the way it was without any repercussions for anybody, without any explanation. I kind of feel like this administration just said, yeah, boys, we're bailing. We're not really going to tell you why, and we're not going to tell you we're sorry. And that's kind of a short way to put it, I guess. But yeah, so pride's not the word I'd use.
Oh, and I think for a lot of civilians, one of the biggest things wasn't even so much that we pulled out, it's that we pulled out and we knowingly gave a terrorist organization weapons. Now, I'm not the brightest guy in the world. I've never served in the military, but I was smart enough when I was a kid playing war not to leave my pile of rocks in the enemy's backyard because he was going to use them on me. And I
Well,
think a
here's
lot
the
of civilians feel that way. Now, what about from a military standpoint? How does that how does that even make sense?
tactically, I most of the stuff that we used, most of the stuff that I used while I was there. I'm talking vehicles, um, radios. What else? Like long range weapon sights. I'm not talking like sniper rifles. I'm talking about like laser and infrared sights where you can see 2,500 meters, 25,000 meters. Most of that stuff was in such rundown condition anyway. The desert's hard on stuff, man. Especially like Afghanistan. In the summer, it'll be 110. In the wintertime, it'll be 6 degrees with a 45-mile-an-hour wind. And that's, it's such like I showed you some of my pictures to where
Yeah.
sometimes I'm in a t-shirt, sweat my ass off, and other times I'm bundled up from head to toe in
Right.
2 foot of snow. Yeah, it's real hard on equipment. So like, I'm not worried about the Humvees and shit we left them at. It's all garbage anyways. They don't have any parts to fix anything in that country. I mean, you're working on your trucks every week. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
All that's minuscule, but it's funny because while we were in Afghanistan, we were fighting against people who were fighting us with stuff the Russians had left there in the 70s. I'm sure you know about the Russians trying to go
Yep.
take over Afghanistan. Yeah.
Yep. Charlie
So like,
Wilson's war.
yeah. They're using Russian guns and ammo to fight us. Well, we just left all of our guns and ammo there, just like Russia did. I'm just like, man,
That's, I
we
guess
made
we
fun of this
just
country
completed
so
the
much.
cycle.
Yeah, and I'm just like, so now next time someone goes to Afghanistan, hopefully it ain't us again. They're going to be fighting against M4s with all of our ammo and shit we left them. But
Right.
it's really minuscule. In my like the equipment, I'm not worried about. I know a lot of Americans. You know, I've seen a lot of civilians had a huge problem with us laying all the millions of dollars of equipment and all that stuff there. Well, it was all junk anyway. Like I don't know if you know how much an up armored Humvee weighs. You know what a Humvee is, right?
Yeah.
A standard military Humvee. That alone is about a 7,000-pound vehicle. Now they're made out of light aluminum, but the up armored ones, the one we use overseas, have freaking doors on them 2 inches thick, glass on them 2 inches thick. Those things probably weigh
16.
15,
Yeah.
18,000 pounds. I mean,
That's a semi.
so right, how
That's a
much?
bobtailed semi.
Yeah, exactly. How many of those do you want to ship home via either airplane or ship that are already in rundown condition?
Right.
Financially, it doesn't make sense to do it. So I understand that, but here's what I don't like about what we left there is this is a 100% true life story. My interpreter in Afghanistan, most interpreters served our military with the promise that they would be eligible to come to America whenever they were done with their service, right?
Right.
And so my interpreter over there, the one that I had the most missions with for the longest duration, I had several interpreters, but this is one that I built the closest relationship with. Whenever all that shit hit the news about us pulling out of Afghanistan, it showed the last plane leaving and all the Humvees and stuff still sitting in the parking lot and all that. I sent that dude a message and I said, "Hey, how are you doing?" And he said, "I'm doing all right. I appreciate you checking in." A big culture thing for Middle Eastern cultures is asking about people's family. So I don't just tell you, "Hey, cowboy, I hope you have a good day today." I tell you, "I hope you have a good day and your family stays safe." Or like you always include family because it's a super prideful thing for them.
Right.
Like a successful young man, he knows he's successful whenever he can have his parents move into his house. And
Right.
that's the way they do it. And so the more generations they have living under the same roof, the more successful and prideful they are about that.
Right.
So I asked them, I said, "Well, how's your family with this stuff going on in the news?" And he said, I'm not gonna lie to you, man. I can't get a hold of my mom or my sister." He's like, I'm pretty messed up about it. I've been calling everybody I know." And he knows I had some connections in higher government agencies. Not gonna dime them out on the internet here, but "Hey, could you get a hold of anybody? Is there anything you can do?" And I said, "Yeah, I can pass your information along and maybe they could help. I'm not sure." But like that's a dude who I think he was my interpreter for 6 or 7 months, probably, almost daily hanging out with this dude.
As much of a
Learn,
brother as the fellow soldiers.
yeah, a guy I trusted enough to give a bulletproof vest and a rifle to, so he could protect himself because they're hated over there. They're traitors. They went to the other side. They're liable to get shot
Yep.
walking down the market. Um, and he was worried that he would never see his mom or his sister again because of the way we just pulled out and didn't have any plan, it seemed like, in place. And our government administration truly abandoned thousands of people like that, people that they had promised, "If you do this, you can come to America," and then they left them. And that's a fact. It's not a political statement. It's not a nothing. It's a true life story from the source. My interpreter, his family was abandoned and left there. Well, what do you think happens to people like that?
That's rough. Well, man, we are up on our break. When we come back from break, we're gonna have Unbroken Vet along for the ride with us, and we're gonna get some more inside information, firsthand accounts, and learn a little bit about coming home and reacclimation to life at home. So you guys stick around. Got a video gonna come up and play for you in the break, and we'll be back right after this.
3 teens were arrested today for defacing the Kensington Park War Memorial overnight. The destruction includes painted messages against the military and the war in the Middle East. The 3 teens were picked up in the early morning hours after evidence was left at the scene.
Grandpa, something wrong?
Some people sure have short memories, and those who are too young to know need to be taught. Come on, I want to show you guys something.
Yesterday, December 7th, 1941, a date which will live in infamy. The United States of America was suddenly and deliberately attacked by naval and air forces of the Empire of Japan.
At dawn on the morning of the 6th of June, 1944, 225 Rangers jumped off the British landing craft and ran to the bottom of these cliffs. 225 came here. After 2 days of fighting, only 90 could still bear arms. These are the boys of Puente Hope. These are the men who took the cliffs. These are the champions who helped free a continent. These are the heroes who helped end a war. You are men who in your, quote, lives fought for life and left the vivid air signed with your honor.
In the name of God and country, I learned to defy gravity.
To honor my family, I lived in the belly of a beast.
I fixed the hearts of iron monsters.
I became a worm in the mud for dignity.
For honor.
For righteousness' sake.
For God and country.
I fought for you.
I fought for you.
For you.
I fought for you. I fought for you.
I fought for you.
I fought for you.
For you. For you. For you.
For you.
I fought for you.
I fought for you.
I fought for you, and I do it again. All right, welcome back to the Patriot View. I am back with Patriotic Veteran. Before we bring Unbroken Vet in, Patriotic, if you would, why don't you tell us about our two sponsors here on screen? These are some really cool resources for our veterans and our first
They're not really
responders.
sponsors, and I meant to get, man, I had another one. I'm not going to say it now because I'm not going to ruin the surprise, but I've got another awesome asset for you guys, any first responder or veteran. These two are First Ticks and Vet Ticks. Says I'm muted. Says somebody's muted.
No, you shouldn't be muted.
Check.
I hear you.
I hear you.
Muted.
I hear
What
me.
is muted? Who is muted?
Yeah, come on, solid.
Never mind. That was her. We're not muted. She was muted.
She's muted? Oh.
Well, that's a mute point.
Awesome moderators, man. Fit right
Best
in.
ever.
They
They
fit
did.
right
They
in.
fit right in with the rest of us. We're all just human, and that's cool. That's what makes us good at this.
First Ticks and Vet Ticks are basically the same organization with two different names. It's all Vet Ticks, but they give out free tickets to a plethora of events. Cowboy, that means a lot. It's a fancy word for a lot.
Big word.
Yeah.
Don't strain yourself.
Oh, I'm good. I practiced that one all morning. All you gotta do is either be a first responder and do the code on. I hope it's on your left. I think it's on the left. One that says first ticks. The red, white, and blue one with the firefighter up front. That's my QR code. You should be able to scan that with your phone. And the vet ticks one is the one with the Army soldier hockey player guy, and that's for all veterans. You do have to verify your identity. I think they use ID Me, which is a pretty popular and reputable source for verifying your identity. Once you do all your info through ID.me, you don't have to do it ever again. Like you can use ID.me for any veteran discount or any military discount on anything. But those are two great organizations. They got tons of Blackhawk tickets on there. If anybody wants to go see that shit team now that they traded away everybody I liked. Tons of hockey games, concerts, comedians. I went and seen Adam Sandler. I've seen STP, Bush. Tons of everything. Magic shows. You can go see Disney on Ice. Like literally tons of stuff. Monster trucks. I took my family to see monster trucks.
So it's literally any kind of event that you
Any
want to
kind
go
of,
to.
I mean, yeah. They're the ones who sent me to NASCAR last year in St. Louis.
Pretty cool.
Got
Very
four,
cool.
and they're not first row tickets. Don't get your hopes up and think you're gonna sit rink side or court side, but
Ticket's a
it's free
ticket.
and yeah, it's awesome. But hey, while we're on the topic of military discounts, I want to clear the air. I have been dogging on this auto parts store about. Remember, I said they do like military Mondays. They only appreciate me on Mondays.
Right.
I went in there, bought some parts on Tuesday, and I said, "Hey, do you guys still just appreciate me on Mondays or what?" And they said, "What do you mean?" I said, "Your veterans discount." And they said, "No, actually, it's every day of the week now, all day, every day. It was 10 or 15%, whatever it was, on anything." I'm like, huh, I can't wait to put this on my stream because I've been dogging you guys. So hey,
Make them
man,
famous.
people are changes. People are changing. That change for the positive there.
Good. Well, we're going to go ahead and bring our guest online with us now. We're going to bring in my buddy, Unbroken Vet, and he's coming live on stream right now to you guys. I am really excited to have this guy here, and he is one of the
He's
driving
really excited.
forces that has brought me into iRacing. I've been watching his stream for a long time now, but the one thing that really drew me to him is the fact that I know he is active in the background working with other veterans and first responders, trying to make a difference in the world. And there's a link to his channel right there. He's an iRacing streamer, one of the coolest guys I've met on Twitch that served and streams. I just really can't get enough of our veterans. I mean, I'm part of so many different veteran owned and veteran related communities. But this guy right here, I always find myself going back, catching my morning coffee and watching him run laps or catching him in time and jumping in one of the hosted races. Richard, it's good to have you here, my brother.
Hey, appreciate you for bringing me on. And
What's
don't
up?
make me blush, okay? So that's all right now. You're being too
Now,
kind.
now I can tell you what I really think.
Oh, Lordy, don't do that.
What you sipping on there?
Uh, so while I was in your green screen, there was a really, really hot chick that brought me some beer. So
Heck yeah.
love that backstage.
Yeah.
I don't
That's
get that
decent.
treatment backstage, let me tell you.
Neither do I. It's a special occasion, apparently.
Well, man, we're excited to have you on. I'm actually going to let Patriotic start it off because I know he's curious about where you serve, see if you guys have some locations in common, things like that. So fire away, man. Let's
Well,
get
just
right
tell us
into it.
about you to start with. How old are you? Where you hail from? What's the branch of service were you in? That type of stuff.
So I'm actually I grew up in Jersey, born in Florida. So I
Crazy
ended up.
Yankee.
Oh boy.
I've lived half. I mean, that's kind of funny. Someone always, people always ask me, it's like, where you from? Where'd you live most of your life? And I'm like, well, literally lived half my life in the north, half my life in the south. So I'm pretty much from wherever the hell I am at the moment.
Hell yeah.
So ended up joining the U.S. Army as military police, or 31 Bravo. I joined that back in '07. Went to basic at Fort Lost in the Woods, and
Oh, nice.
once I left there, I swore I'd never go back. And I'm keeping my word on that one. I haven't gone back yet, and I don't plan to.
I thought we were
Someone
going up
lied to
there
me.
together this summer.
Yeah, you can ride on the back of his bike. He'll take you out there.
You know what? Hey, man, you have fun. I'm sorry for when you cry because I'm going to call you on the phone saying, oh, by the way, I ain't coming. But no, so yeah, I ended up joining. I joined in '07. Graduated basic AIT from Fort Leonard Wood, December of '08. And I ended up being stationed with the 385th Military Police Battalion, stationed out of Fort Stewart. There in Hinesville.
I've met a couple of those guys down there at Fort Stewart.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
They were infantry. They probably didn't give a shit. I actually loved. I loved being in the army. I just loved the life. So except for the one person, I was asked earlier today. You know, could I ever answer a question on why do we have pockets? And what was the other one I was trying to think of? Oh, why do we have cold weather gear if we can't wear them when it's 30 below? So so but that's pretty much it. I'm a very simple person to understand, and not a
So you
whole
did
lot to me.
one contract and got out?
Um, I was only able to do one contract. We Once I got out of basic and AT, I got to my unit on Christmas Eve, and I want to say it was in February or March. I found out that my wife was pregnant with our first child, and quite literally, because life loves to you know give Hollywood just credit. The next day, I found out I was deploying, and
No
we were
fun.
getting deployed to at the time it was Iraq. We weren't going to Afghanistan, and then they changed it over and sent us to Kandahar, uh, and we left middle of July, and we got there around August, and we went from August and then till I got medevaced out and brought back to the States right around New Year's.
Okay.
So yeah, we weren't there all that long. I mean, our platoon was kind of working with itself, doing it, just kind of doing its own thing. So we unfortunately we had one KIA, two wounded that day. One eventually lost his leg. The other one ended up having metal in every part of him. And then luckily I survived I got hit by a 155 artillery round to the body with a makeshift claymore against the wall right here. I was lucky because it wasn't meant to come this way. It was meant to go that way, but I still took the back blast. Still
Yep.
hit the side.
Well, we're happy you're still with
So
us.
yeah,
We appreciate your service.
I
So
loved it.
for those who don't know, can you describe a 155 round? How big is that?
That's a big ass fucking round.
155 millimeters in diameter, about 48 inches long. I don't know how many inches or millimeters that is, but
I will tell you that I got a close look at it, but if I had saw it, trust me, I would have been standing there. I
yeah.
didn't.
I've had a couple of run-ins with some 155s. We drove by a stack of them. They stacked them 5 high and blew them up next to my truck. But thankfully for me, they dug them about 4 foot in the ground. So really, all it did was push up the earth. You know, obviously there's still a big boom and some shrapnel and stuff, but they buried it way too deep, so it did not have the desired effect. And we walked away from there with no one paying the
Yeah,
ultimate sacrifice.
they were so. Uh, during that time, the common tactic was to put it a foot under the ground, so K9 couldn't pick up on it. Um, and then usually a complex ambush would usually follow after
Yep,
that.
yep. Complex
Uh,
ambush, for those who don't know, is they'll 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 kick off an ambush by either trying to disable the front or rear vehicle, depending, to try to trap you guys, and then they will come in with some sort of secondary fire, whether it be mortar fire, machine guns, AK, whatever.
yeah, or as I like to call it, the oh shit.
Yeah.
But yeah, so once I got back to Fort Stewart, it was um, year and a half, roughly. I ended up being one of the first soldiers who went through the cycle of the med board, where they were doing both the Army rating and the VA rating at the same time. Because the Army loves to do things that are simple
Yeah.
and expedient.
Hurry up and
So
wait.
yeah, and then get yelled at while you wait. When they're the ones that told you to wait. So it was a lot of trying to um, heal up both physically and mentally. There's a lot of things going on, as far as getting my legs to work the way they should, getting my arms to work the way they should. um, I ended
What
up having
kind
to
of physical injuries sustained from?
I ended up with 4 herniated discs in the lower back. I ended up with 4 in the C spine, which is my neck area. I also ended up with an impinged hip, which kind of took my ability to walk and keep balance. It completely blew out my left eardrum, and I lost about 95% hearing in my left ear. I lost about roughly 45% in my right. Um,
That
good job, you're
explains why
pro.
he
You did
doors
great.
me. That explains why he doors me going around a turn.
You
Can't
can't hear
hear
your
that
car
Oh,
I'm there.
yeah, no, I've been nice, but really, anytime you get doored, it's not you getting doored, it's the other person getting doored. You're doing most of it yourself. But
I
hey, man,
drove
not
with.
everybody can drive on a joystick,
This
so
this is
I
true.
mean, props to you.
I'm not
Yeah,
on
he
a
doesn't do any
joystick.
better in truck sim either. He wrecks in truck sim and blames on everybody else.
Yeah, that's what happens.
um, yeah, so I ended up having it damaged muscles in my eye, so I've had both eyes removed with muscles pulled out to help compensate for the walls not being able to, or not the walls, the eyes not to drift. The reason why I said walls is because it's called wall eye, because one eye the muscle can't hold it, so it kind of drifts to the wall. Um, and no one will ever see it. Okay, I'm not becoming a meme. I don't want to be famous, and I damn sure don't want to be no damn meme. So that ain't
Not
happening.
happening.
You don't want to be a Steve Buscemi meme.
Hell no. I have a hard enough time not being a meme with half the mistakes I make when I stream.
Well, hey,
So
you are in common company here, buddy. We started off the stream on mute, I think. And then we weren't muted.
Um, so you said you were dealing with physical and the mental side of it, and that's really some of what we want to focus on is coming home from combat situation, wounded. You're dealing with physical and mental things that you're having to fight through and figure out how your life is going to go. Plus, you're married, you got a new kid on the way, or possibly born at this time. How how did you cope with all of that? What is it that you did that helped you cope with that?
Um, that one's hard. Because even during the med board process, I didn't want out of the military. I fought like hell to stay in. I had really no intention of getting out. Um, you kind of there's you have to be able to surround yourself with people that kind of understand what it is that you're going through. Family's a big thing for me. Um, I was very blessed by my wife. I can't possibly give her the most enough love.
I
Um,
think family members often are shorted on credit when it comes to dealing with us when we come home half psycho.
right. And I gotta say, never overlook a military spouse, male or female, doesn't really matter. And my wife's grandmother always said it best, actually put it best, and it's probably why we survived, going on 15, 16 years now. And she looked at the wife one day when I wasn't home and said, no matter what you're doing, what you're going through, he's got it worse. But it was the same advice she gave to me. No matter what you're doing overseas or what you got going on, she's got it worse. And it's that mindset that makes you realize that everything you're going through, they're going through something worse. And and oddly, it gives you a sense of relief. And in that moment, when you think about it, it lets you realize that you're not by yourself. And I think that's the biggest struggle, with being a combat veteran, is to find something that makes you feel like you're not alone.
Yeah.
Which is why, I know a lot of people may look down on gaming and streaming or what have you, but there's valid um, comfort in doing it. You can meet people, such as Patriot here, and or I call him Cowboy. That's how I know your name.
Right.
Um, but then you can meet people like Cruel Mob, who's a Marine chief, who's in the Navy, Yopa J, J Bones, and you start building genuine um, relationships and understanding of each other. And so if you're having a bad day, you can hit them up, and they will talk to you, and they will take that time, because you know life isn't fair. And so you're not always going to be in a position to where you're going to be around people that can grasp what's going on, or what's going on in your mind.
Well, and a lot of it too, I'm assuming you feel the same way. I guess I should say is the people we talked last week about empathy and sympathy, right? Like you don't want people to feel sorry for you. You're not looking for sympathy, I assume. I'm not. Most of us aren't. And it's really hard to find people who empathize, who can actually understand and say, "Yes, I've been in your shoes." And so it's hard to have a conversation with someone who doesn't know what you're talking about. And it's
Yes.
hard to tell people in detail what you're talking about because you don't really want to relive that or tell that story all the time. You know what I mean? By telling someone, I feel this way anyways, by telling someone a bad story or whatever, um you kind of hope in the end maybe that they understand where you're coming from a little bit more, but it always doesn't work out that way, and then you've lost that story. Now it's I don't know, it's almost like they're incapable of appreciating it the way that you appreciate it because you were there, you lived it. And so it can be rough to find someone who can be on the same page. And like you said, with gaming and virtual communities, it broadens the network so big to where, like, shit, I met you. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
We wouldn't, without gaming, without iRacing, without guys like Cowboy out here reaching out to everybody all the time, we might not have ever connected. Probably
All,
probably wouldn't have.
all we do is
True.
cast a net. Like we were talking about, the VA widening the net for coverage for disabilities
Yep.
related to things. That's all I'm doing. I'm trying to cast a wide net to gather veterans together, to bring multiple communities together because of what you just said, Unbroken. The fact that it is hard for you guys to find other people sometimes who actually know what you're going through, who've actually been there. And so if I can help connect you guys, then I'm doing something that's helping somebody else's life. And there's something that somebody told me a long time ago that still makes sense, and it said it two different ways. The only thing that matters 20 years from now is what you did to help somebody today. And then he said, and the only thing that'll matter 50 years from now is what you did in the life of a child today, be it good or bad. That's the only thing that's going to be remembered 50 years from now. And so what I'm trying to do is connect you guys together and do what little bit of good I can do, because I cannot empathize with you. I can sympathize with you, but that doesn't do me any good and it doesn't help you.
It don't do nobody no good.
Yeah.
So, but if I can connect you, then that benefits all three of us, because now I have two really good friends that I'm sitting here having a conversation with, I'm iRacing with, and you guys just made a new friend that you can have a conversation with and you can iRace with. We're building that community. That's what it's about.
So I think one thing, like I think the one thing that'll help veterans, and I learned this very much the hard way. And you need more than just community. And the one thing that I think that helps is right when you meet the community, the biggest thing you got to do is you can't really lie to yourself, right? And by that I mean, up until I say I got medically retired out when I was around the age of 24. And it wasn't until I was roughly 32, 33 years old when I finally realized that the only thing I was doing, when I sit there and say that, I could still be in the army, I can still do this, I can still do that. You don't want to lie to yourself in that, because the more you lie to yourself, the more you're just going to sink lower and lower. Um, and the further away you feel from, say like I wanted to be in the military, so the further away from it I felt, the more the depression grew, because my goal was getting farther and farther away. um, and I think once you start focusing on yourself, um, not necessarily anything else other than yourself. How do I truly feel? The nightmares are bad, or alcohol is the only thing that helps, or anything like that. The moment you realize that, looking at yourself and going, okay, alcohol is not really going to help you. You're not really sleeping. Every soldier knows that, because from the countless safety briefings you get, on that Friday night, or that Friday last formation. Because you always got that one guy that has to have that one extra point that has to get the first sergeant to talk for another 20 minutes when we all want to go home.
Absolutely.
We love that guy. He's our favorite. But but that's one thing I really hope, I want veterans to take away the most is, just because you may want to do something, and you physically or mentally cannot do that, it doesn't mean that you've necessarily failed at something. And to just kind of be honest with just yourself, and you don't have to tell me or you or anybody else. It's just to have that actual conversation with yourself. And I had it with myself, and that's when I realized, okay, I'm never gonna be in the army. And once I let that kind of go away, um, then everything started getting just a little bit better. And I think the most popular saying, especially in the military, is, and I think it was with suicide prevention, don't use a long-term solution for a short-term problem. And so that's actually kind of stuck with me. And I've seen it to where we lost someone who, from that particular situation, because they couldn't get out of their minds, and anything like that. So it's very important that the first thing we do is make sure that the soldier is comfortable, or the veteran, I'm sorry, soldier, veteran, doesn't really matter, is they're comfortable in their own skin. And that's kind of why, if you're a veteran or you're a civilian, the first thing I always want to make sure is that you're comfortable in your own skin. You're comfortable with yourself, because if you're not comfortable with yourself, you're not going to be comfortable with anything else that you're trying to do.
True.
Yeah.
And that's the most important thing. I'm very much comfortable with myself. I still have things I know I have to deal with. My friend says I have no couth. So
I
um,
ain't got none of that either, whatever it is.
so
Yeah, I don't know what the hell that is.
apparently it means you have no tact. I didn't know it either.
Oh, yeah, I've
But
been told that.
yeah, but I figured it was my Sesame Street word of the day, so I had to fit it somewhere. So here we go. You just drop
Well,
it there.
go ahead. If he's got some extra couth, he can pack it up and mail
Yes.
it to me.
But I think once you get to that point, a veteran, and soldiers, they can truly start to enjoy things, and start going into the community. Um, and if we can focus on that, because like I know for me, everything was about control.
Absolutely.
Um, if you can't control the environment, then you don't want to be around that environment. You want out as fast as humanly possible. So, um, but sitting there and just making sure that you understand what it is that you can do, what it is that you can't do, and put those not necessarily limitations, but understand what it is. Then you can start looking at your goals, and then you can start working towards those goals. Just step up that ladder, and eventually you'll get to that goal, and you'll look back and go, "Holy shit! I can't believe I pulled this off." Sorry, I'm beer. I can't believe I pulled this off. And then all of a sudden, now you have that pride, and you have that confidence that you felt you lost when you left the military. Especially if you're in a combat, or you experience something that maybe people don't normally experience in the military. And so that's kind of how, in a sense, I pulled my bootstraps up,
Yep.
and I did it that way. And then with family, eh, the one thing I always say, when you're trying to look at a veteran and you want to understand if he's okay or anything like that, if a soldier or a veteran is drinking and they're hanging out with friends and all of that stuff, generally they're okay. It's when they're drinking and they're not doing this, and now they're drinking and then by themselves.
Yep.
Yep.
That's when the problem is. That's when you want to notice it. And so, I'm very big on making sure that that part of everything has been taken care of. Because I've been there before I went and um, looked at really where I am and what I am at this moment. And so, I always want to make sure that that gets pointed out. Or as we would call it, red flags. If you see them drinking a beer and being by themselves in their room, and even if they got a family and they don't want anybody, not even their significant other kids or anything like that, that red flag needs to go up. And so that's stuff that I look for, and that's why I always want to make sure that I'm fully available in Discord for everybody.
Right.
Um, and why doing stuff like this I feel is very important, because this was everything I wanted to do. Was talk about situations like this.
What was the hardest thing for your family? You came home for your wife, and I'm assuming that your child was born shortly after or right as you got home. What was the hardest thing for them to deal with in terms of your readjustment to civilian life?
Anger. Um, like I was mad at everything really. Um, I, I couldn't I couldn't reconcile that you can see the greatest that man has to offer and the worst thing that man can do to itself. And you're seeing it all within seconds of each other. And I couldn't reconcile that. And to be honest, I still haven't. And we're talking, this is 12, 13 years later. And it really is the biggest mind F word. Um, keep it
I
politically
say fuck
correct
on here.
ish.
Cowboy doesn't, but I do.
Fair enough. So, but that was the hardest thing, because I at that time I hadn't finished. In my mind, I hadn't finished my job. My job wasn't done yet.
Right.
My platoon was not home yet. I knew what kind of hell that they were kind of dealing with, and I wasn't there to do it. Um, so that was probably the biggest thing. And it wasn't until my wife told me that I was very hard to live with in a group environment, that it kind of clicked that I wasn't headed down the path that I wanted to be, or wanted to do. And that, my wife had left a 4-year college to follow me into the army. And then, we're not even 2 years into our marriage. And all of a sudden, the person that she married has done a flip,
Right.
went from loving and caring about everybody to, I just don't care. Like, if you're not standing in front of me and talking about or talking to me about something that I give a shit about, I don't want nothing to do with you. Don't talk to me. Don't come near me. I don't know you. You don't know me. There's no reason to talk. And that's where I was at, including with my wife. And it was kind of at that moment when I realized, okay, I'm not right. I need to fix something. I didn't know what to fix, because at that point, everyone pretty much just uh, picked up a teddy bear and said, "Hey, this is what's screwed. All of it." So there was really no clean or clear direction on where to go with it. So you just kind of start working on one thing at a time.
And I
But
imagine everybody's situation is a little bit different as to what they've got to work on too, based on
yeah.
what they individually went through and what type of personality they have. What about your wife? I'm sure she must have had, some anger or resentment, over the fact that she sent her husband away whole and he came back, hurt, physically and emotionally. I'm sure there must have been some emotions there that she had to overcome as well.
Um, I mean, she was upset that I was hurt. No, and she was not upset. She wasn't mad.
Right.
Um, at least not at the job in general, or as being a soldier or anything like that. She took it in stride. Instead of focusing on, what had happened and all of that, she focused on what to do next. And she went day by day.
Good advice.
And it was, okay, wake up, help him with whatever it is he needs help with, pants, getting shirts on, walking, whatever it was. She just got up, and that's what she was doing that day. Um, and then while I was there, it didn't go very well for me. WTU, which is called a Warrior Transition Unit, which you go to this unit and they decide if you're going to leave the army or if you're going to stay in the army. And at that time, they had determined that I was going to leave the army, and it was not enjoyable. It was actually very shitty, to be completely frank. So my wife had determined that at that particular moment, it was her job to join the military. So she ended up joining the army in the medical field. And her only goal to do when she did that was to ensure that if somebody's in pain, soldier or a dependent, it didn't really matter, that she knew that at least one person was going to try and make that person smile even during pain. And
Right.
that's just the way my wife was. She doesn't hold any grudges or anything like that. She's an absolute um, sweetheart and angel. So, and I truly mean that. So she
I've
doesn't
heard
hold
you
it
talk
against
about
her.
her before and talk to her, and I can say that tell me that I believe that's true because I've heard how you speak to your wife and how you speak of her. I've heard you talk a little bit past about how she tough times coming.
Sounds like a savior too.
Oh, I will tell everybody. I always make a joke. I could stand in the middle of a model, in the middle of a group of models, and they could be completely stark fucking naked dancing, and my wife knows it. It wouldn't phase me in the least. It wouldn't change anything. Because she has the one thing that is very hard for people to get from me, and that's my respect.
Sure.
Um, but it's my respect in that sense of the word. Um, so that's just kind of how me and the wife are and how we interact with each other. But she's just as crazy as I am. Don't get it twisted. She's very much.
She'd have to be.
Yeah, she got my sense of humor. Okay, if you heard some of the things we joke about.
Bro, I'm in the funeral business. Trust me, I know.
Whew.
It gets
Let me
it
tell you
gets
something. When I
pretty
had the
dark.
emote of straps, my wife loved it. She thought it was like the funniest thing in the fucking world. Okay, so she's there. She's
I
she's
knew
that
that
way.
was gonna come up
But
at some point as soon as
I
you
got no
mentioned
shame,
it
man.
earlier today.
So, but yeah, so that's kind of how I that's kind of what the hardest part was. At least from the family standpoint, that I think that would be the hardest part. Was dealing with just my anger and my disappointment, and genuine fear. Um, and not really for me, but because I had no idea what was going on um, downrange. I knew what I had left, and I knew that what they were still kind of having to deal with, and I wasn't ready to hear another phone call that we had
Yeah.
more coming back. Um, thankfully, I can't say thankfully, we did have one more. But thankfully, there was no more KIAs after that. There was no more phone calls. There was nothing like that, um, which kind of relieved, helped. And then I think the biggest thing is the unit came home and I got to show a lot of love to my platoon sergeant, because he came home when everybody came home. They did I don't know what the returning home ceremony, and he fought tooth and nail to make sure that all the soldiers that were from his platoon. Um, there were three. I think it was 3 out of 5. He made sure that every single one of us walked with the company, and instead of leading the platoon out, he stayed with the 3 that got wounded, and he walked with us at our pace.
That's awesome.
That's pretty.
So yeah,
That,
that was that
that's a
that
leader
that helped.
right there.
Oh yeah, he was an amazing leader. I mean, not at the time. I mean, he had us doing some shit we really didn't understand. Like, so, at the time, it was kind of one of those things. It's one of the leaders where you hate him at the time, you hate him before and during, but you absolutely love him afterwards because
It
you
seems like
understand what's going on.
a lot of great teachers of humanity are like that. You hate the lessons they're trying to teach you while you're learning them. But
Right.
later, whenever you gain the wisdom, you're like, oh, yep.
Now I understand.
Yeah, yeah. It was that way. We met up last year. I did maybe no 2 years ago, either last year or 2 years ago. We all drove down to Fort Stewart to see Sergeant Ski's tree. If anybody doesn't know, anytime I so at least at Fort Stewart, I'm not sure about all installations, as I've not been to all of them. But I know at Fort Stewart, anytime we lose a soldier to combat, we plant a tree for him.
That's pretty
We
cool.
lost Sergeant Ski, so we all met up at it's about probably 10 to 12 years after the fact. We all met. We all went to Fort Stewart from all over the country. We met up and we saw him, and I got to see my platoon sergeant. And so, it was a great time, and I got to tell him that that I had a lot of love and respect for him, something I couldn't do beforehand. Um, I think before that, the last thing I had ever said, um, actually said directly to him, because I didn't really say much at the ceremony. But I'm pretty sure the last words I said to my platoon sergeant was, "Hey, Sergeant, found that IED," of which he promptly responded, "Shut up, Clement." And um, but yeah, that's pretty much how I get through that, and how everybody and what everyone kind of was dealing with as far as my end.
How does that relate to
So,
you, Patriotic? Is that similar as far as coping
um,
and figuring things out?
not really, man. Whenever I got home, got out, my life had changed dramatically. I didn't know really anybody from before. I didn't like most of the guys that I served with were still in, so I just kind of tried going to college and drinking a lot. Honestly, I mean,
Well,
it is what it is.
and that kind of
You should
goes
have started
back.
that before the army.
Yeah.
That kind of goes back to the conversations we've had about the fact that it looks different for every veteran coming out. What helps them get figured out and move on to the next part of their life looks different for everybody. For some people,
There
it
was no treatment or counseling or anything that would have helped me
right.
cope with anything. And I'm still that way today. I do not want outside sources helping me. I would assume get through whatever shit I'm getting through by myself or with the help of friends and family, as opposed to professionals. And like I always say on here, man, I don't fit into a box.
Yep.
I don't, I'm not the picture perfect poster boy for the army, for veterans, for nothing. And I'm cool with that. I like who I am. I'm okay with who I am. And
I got a picture poster perfect joke, but I'll save it for.
oh boy, does it involve a hot tub?
No, no.
So Unbroken Vet, I got to ask you. We prior to your coming on the second half of our show here, we had discussed Afghanistan and the manner in which our administration pulled out of Afghanistan.
Mhm.
And as someone who has left so much there, how did you feel about leaving our interpreters' families, all the people that we had promised a plane trip to America? How does that impact your life, and has it?
Um, I mean, I was pretty pissed, to be honest with you. Um, and I like everything to be very organized. Things need to kind of make sense. I I I I don't necessarily care if a politician has egg on its face. To be completely honest with you, I'd give two shits. To be frank with you, um, I don't like if from my personal opinion, when it comes to militaries, pulling out of a situation, um, it's best you let the military decide how we do that. Um, and it's not really to save face, but it saves lives. I don't really necessarily feel the best approach to that would be, let them know when we're leaving, um,
Yeah.
or put yourself in a position to where you're trying to do something overnight, and you want to be so quick that you leave things, um, because you start confusing the new soldiers, the soldiers that haven't done it. They get very much confused. You can attest, everything is accountability. You got to count for all of this stuff. You got, you know if you don't have your dog tags, you know, you're getting smoked
Right.
for an hour and a half. If you don't have your boots tied the right way, like everything is accountability.
All the time. Like
So
you sleep with that
right,
rifle. You don't show up at chow without your rifle.
yeah. I mean, that was fun. Oh god, that bad memories there. 2 minutes, yeah. Who the great? I can't even taste my food, jerk. Anyways, off topic. I don't like that. Everything has to be organized. Everything needs to be accounted for. Every person, and everything. If you want us out, give the order. We'll make it happen. I don't. That's what we do. Um, and if you give us a deadline, I mean, at least make it reasonable. Not overnight. Don't do the overnight shit. Um, I have a lot of pride um, in how the U.S. military, all branches, can respond to something very very quickly and very very rapidly, and with a lot of efficiency.
It is a swift and
Um,
heavy hammer.
oh yeah, um, and very good to do things on the fly. Our lower enlisted our lower enlisted and our E5s, E6, your sergeants or your staff sergeants, they can take the initiative and make things go even faster. And if you want something done, just let them do it. Let them
Yeah.
look at let them look at the map and say, okay, proceed this way. We want to be out of this region by this particular day, and give it us a big window, and then just let them slowly increment,
Well, and
and then we can get everything
logistics
out.
start from the bottom, right? You ask your platoon sergeants, hey, how long is it going to take to get you guys to get their shit packed and get on a truck? And your platoon sergeants tell your company commander, right? So now I got four platoons, and it's going to take us 4 days, whatever. And then commanders to battalions on up. The general should be the
Right.
last guy to say, okay, yeah, we can make this happen in 28 days, and he should report that, not
Right.
the other way around. Commander in chief or 4-star generals, whatever shouldn't make a deadline like you say. Shouldn't say, hey, by the way, you're going to be back in Georgia in 3 days. Make it happen.
Right. Because then you end up with something like what you got now, where it looks like we're running even though we're not.
That's exactly what it
Um,
looked like to the civilian
you
population.
Well,
Right.
and it gets worse though, because then you put the soldier in a very um a tricky position, because now I know for most people it would sound like, oh well, if it's a smaller area, it's easier to defend. But the thing, it's not just that, right? Yeah, we're a smaller area, easier to an extent to defend, but the problem is everybody knows where you are.
Right.
Right.
Everybody. And they all know you're not going anywhere. They all know that you want out, so they can pretty much do whatever they want. Um,
And you're not
and
going to
you're
stop
kind of
them.
stuck. Yeah, there's really not much you can do. So I feel like you pretty much, and that was it. But that was the decision that was made, and the boots on ground did what they could with what they had. And from my understanding, which they didn't really have a whole lot, but no, it definitely could have went. I think it could have been done way better, way better. Um,
We
and
always have a terrible habit as a country to broadcast our intentions. Like with the most
yeah.
recent thing in the with Ukraine and Russia, right? Like we put it all on the news. Yeah, by the way, we're preparing 31 Abrams tanks to send over there. What? Now, why the hell would you put that on the news? Like, why not just fly 31 tanks over there and train some guys to use them, so they're now they know what's coming.
They're like,
Yeah, I
great,
got
we have
thoughts on
32
that.
shoulder launched missiles waiting for them,
Right.
We need to get that
I
missile
don't know.
factory back up.
Without like really getting too political, because I mean, I kind when it comes to Ukraine and Russia, I don't necessarily care too much about the politics, to be honest with you. From a soldier standpoint, and that's kind of how I look at it. Um, don't give away our Abrams.
Right.
Right.
It's weird to me. Um,
Yeah, here's the best tank known to man.
yeah,
You
yeah.
can
I
have
mean,
some.
it's weird. I don't get it. I mean, we can't even talk about certain things. You know what I mean? Like things that's well known. They're like, oh well, it's classified, so it can't be talking about it. It's like, yeah, but they got the shit on Call of Duty. It don't matter.
Right.
They know that you can't talk about it. Okay. Oh, by the way, here's 31 Abrams.
I can fly this on DCS World, you know.
Yeah, well, just don't be the jerk that puts it on Reddit, okay, and just gives away secrets, which apparently is
Right.
happening on War Thunder. I just heard about this from our own military people, but that's a whole nother
I
conversation.
believe it.
So
The people want to be so internet famous that they got no problem putting out shit they shouldn't is a problem.
It's just a
People need to
bunch of
calm down.
roosters out here, man. A bunch of roosters out here doing a mating dance. Who can, a bunch of peacocks. There you go.
I could drink a bottle of whiskey and still not give away stupid shit. Like I don't get, I'm confused. I don't get people sometimes.
So you were you signed up to be an MP, and if
Yes.
I remember right, you told me that's what you wanted to do when you kind of had that vision going in. Is that
Yes.
correct? So tell us a little bit about what you expected that to be versus what it actually was. Was there a big difference between the two?
Um, between what I thought and what happened,
Yeah.
yeah, pretty big boom difference, to be honest. But um, I actually I knew I wanted to be an MP. I really didn't have any real expectations of what that could possibly mean. My recruiter, I had an absolutely amazing recruiter. Um,
Called the best lies ever,
and
huh?
he never that well that's the thing. The best recruiter is the one that never lies to you.
There you go.
Um, and he never really did. He was completely frank. He's like, look, you know, you can be a because I think I had two. I had MP, and I was like, I would consider being a Calf Scout. But I said consider, and he's like, well, there's a chance that you could end up in combat. Da, 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 da. I didn't really care about all of that, so nothing really came too much of a surprise. But it wasn't because of my knowledge. It was because I had a recruiter who wanted people to join the military because they wanted to be in, or join the army because they wanted to be in, not because they wanted this, that, and the other stuff. He didn't feel like he had to lie to somebody. Um, he didn't feel it was his job to determine whether or not you could become a soldier. That was and he kind of showed it in the way that he would approach with his recruiting.
Oh, sound
He
like
felt
a
it
good
was his
guy.
job to give you the information as he could, get you to maps, get you on that plane to ship out. And it was the drill sergeant's job to figure out if you could be a soldier or not.
Yep.
And um, I've respected and have love for that man ever since. I mean, I keep track of him on Facebook. Even though I don't even like Facebook, I joke around. I am a 35-year-old boomer. Because computers ain't my thing. So.
Explains a lot about why I get doored going around a turn.
Oh
No, no,
boy.
no, no. I said computers. I can still drive. Okay, I can still drive.
Net code got me.
Fixing to have me, boy. If you have me saying "Catch Me Outside," how about that? I'm gonna be mad as hell.
So, you're married, got a family. Do you have more than one kid now?
I have three.
3 kids. So,
Hmm.
how has life treated you? And I won't ever say that you got through this, you got past it. How is life treating you now moving forward? Now that you're through the initial shock of coming home and finding out.
Um, it's been kind of it's been kind of a very long road, a very hard road to be honest. Sorry, chat's my chat. Anyways, um, I've actually I've been very blessed with how everything's come. I very much have lucked my way into a few things. As far as going into going to the VA, and I ran into somebody who's called an OEF OIF, which is a case manager for people that were in Operation Enduring Freedom and Operation Iraqi Freedom. Enduring Freedom being Afghanistan. Um, and she really went to bat for me. I came out with a VA rating of 90%. She read it and goes, "That's not correct. They screwed you. They got it wrong." She put in the paper, and I got 100%. And then she's like, "You should get Social Security disability." I was like, "No, to hell with that. I ain't broken." Um, her basic words were "kiss my ass," and she did it anyways. And so when it comes to kind of working through it, I have been very, very blessed and very lucky. And then when I wanted to find something to do, I got into gaming, and I found more people that were willing to kind of put up with the BS that I kind of would dish out because I think Cowboy, you see it. I use comedy as my way to get through things,
Well, you
and I
you
usually
hadn't
never
hung out
stray
with
away
me and
from it.
Patriotic yet. We got plenty of sarcasm. Three of us get in a room together. There's people leaving with hurt feelings.
But yeah, so but that's it's kind of so like I said, I've been very blessed with it, and then I got into iRacing. I got blessed by a gentleman by the name of 100 Proof guy, who's very loud and very very rambunctious. Um, and it just so happened he was in one of my iRacing things, and I just put in Unbroken Vet, and he came and he's been around ever since. And then I meet people like I call her Valley, but she comes around, and then more people come around. So I've really it has been truly blessed ever since the blast, with the family and with all of that stuff. Um, Now there's been a lot of things that I've had to deal with that may not necessarily be military. That's added a lot of stress and stuff like that. But yeah, the community has very much helped me with that, and dealt with that, and not just on screen, but off stream as well. So that's why I'm a very big advocate for joining discords of people that can help you, or organizations that will support streamers that want to try and reach out. One that I'm a very big fan of is Stack Up. Uh,
Yep.
um, so I like working with them. I do charity streams for them. Anybody, any streamer or anybody that will sit there and say, we want to help veterans, and we want to, you know, put packages together. And it's not just for veterans. They send things over to
Active duty.
overseas and all of that stuff. If you're struggling and and you say you have a PC and all of a sudden it breaks down, and now you've lost your only outlet to
Yeah.
um, bring your stress level down, then they would look at that, consider it, and maybe even get you something to remedy that situation. So anything that will help a veteran take stress off, even if it's for 20 minutes a day, to me, it's worth all the time in the world to me. I
Yep.
will put as much time into it as I can. Um, so it's kind of how I focus it. I would generally try and tackle the issue myself and work and talk with somebody to help them with that. And then I would, focus on, okay, this is outside my league. And I would try to send them to Stack Up, see if maybe they can help, or maybe somebody else that I know may be in a better position to help. Um, and and that's just kind of how I look at it. It's just I've been completely lucky and completely blessed. So yeah, that's really the best answer I can give you.
We're coming up to the end of the hour here. Patriotic, you got any other questions for him?
No, man, nothing that's only going to take 2 minutes that we got left.
I
We could
would.
talk all day, but we got some racing to do
We
after
got
this.
some
I guess
racing
that's
to
a
do
question I
after this.
got.
Are you
You
are
racing
you
or
gonna
what?
be live after this?
I will be doing I we have my boy Crew Mob, who is a Marine. He does Friday Night Lights, which me and him, we drive together. So I'll be jumping in that right after this.
All right. Now, will you be live streaming that?
No, I actually would prefer everyone go and hang out with my boy Crew Mob.
Okay.
Um,
Solid. Can we get that raid set up? Is that all one word? Cruel Mob.
y-
CRUELMOB.
Yeah, drop us a
yes,
link there in the
I
Discord or in
got
the chat.
hell,
We
We'll,
could
we'll
get
get that
get a
raid
raid
set
set
up.
up for him.
Well, we
Man,
appreciate you coming in. We appreciate you
absolutely.
being so open with your story. That's I know I'm a stranger. You haven't known him a long time, and probably don't know our viewers. And it can be a scary thing looking at people and telling them your story, or even a little bit of it, without knowing them too well. We do appreciate that. We're hoping to continue this outreach and continue to bring more veterans and just veteran supporters. You know, civilians are obviously welcome as well, and just get the connectivity. Keep it going.
I appreciate y'all for having me. I appreciate the invite and having the talk. Had a lot of fun. So
We'd definitely love to have you come back in the future and talk about other things. You know, and I know you do a race watch party on Sundays.
Yes.
We do that as well. You know, uh, actually, I'm going to talk to Patriotic about that after stream. But we definitely want to get together with you on some hosted events in the future and help build that iRacing, because it is literally it's about bringing multiple communities together to build one that reaches out to each other and helps each other. That's what we do. And
Well, I appreciate it.
guys, you know what we say. You can't change the whole world, but you can change the world around you.
Don't talk about it, be about it.
Thanks so much for watching, guys. Credits are going to roll, and we're going to raid out to Cruel Mob. So I really appreciate everybody coming out. This has been a great stream. Really good time with buddy on that here. Look forward to seeing you guys next time.